Now, Africa is standing at one of those sink or swim moments in its development story as climate pressures crank up and sustainable growth shifts from a nice idea to a non-negotiable necessity. Across the continent, governments, businesses, and bold innovators are racing towards climate resilience and a circular economy. One of that cuts waste, preserves resources, and turns environmental headaches into economic gold mines. From clean energy uptake to booming recycling ventures, green finance, and smarter data-driven urban planning, the momentum is real and it's rising. But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. Financing gaps, a shaky infrastructure, and policy flip-flops still threaten to slow the continent's green leap forward. And as Africa works to build resilience without leaving anyone behind, the push for a circular, low-carbon future has never been more urgent or more promising. Joining us in the studio to break it all down is Titilayo Oshodi, the special advisor to Lagos Governor on climate change and circular economy to the... Okay. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes. So we're going to get right into it. Now, as Nigeria strengthens its commitment to national and continental net zero goals, there is a growing recognition that government efforts alone will not be sufficient. Now, what role should Nigeria's private sector play in achieving these net zero targets and accelerating climate resilient growth?
Thank you very much for that question. At the heart of the discussion, we want to lie in the value of inclusion. And what that means is that climate finance does not reach women, youth, and the informal sector as a critical component alone. It is a mainstay right now. Our approach in Lagos is deeply rooted in that sort of inclusion. We want to prioritize the most affected and the most vulnerable communities within the state. As you know, that Lagos State is predominantly 70% coastal, and the areas that has been categorized as vulnerable is actually around that 70% as well. Those are those that live around, you know, that coastline. So we want to start to look at what sort of formal saving portfolios or what formal saving programs can be made available for our women, you know, and for our youth, and want to ensure that these guys, you know, that are about 840 by the World Bank statistics, is sitting effectively within a place for financial resilience, so that we're touching on areas of, you know, their weather economic, we're touching on areas of their environmental shocking, we're talking about areas where they can be adaptable, they can begin to build adaptation through resilience, climate-friendly activities for their sustenance.
All right, so there's a lot of urbanization that's going on, and it's going on very quickly and increasingly unpredictable.
This is very odd.
Yes. As we're saying, it's growing very quickly. Now, how does the Lagos State government plan to keep up with this growth, especially within Lagos?
Okay, so we know that Lagos cannot, you know, the government cannot do this alone. The future of our climate finance has to be collaborative, it has to be competitive, you know, and we need a broader coalition with multilateral agencies. We need to be able to have fintech innovators. We need to have private investors and civil society come into the room and have that conversation. There are already landscapes and projects that are already fine-tuned to absorb the sort of shock that is unique and that are particular to communities, to sectors, to areas where there is opportunity for decarbonization. So where we want to be able to imagine a world where digital microfinance platforms can integrate into climate scoring, and carbon credits are beginning to be localized for community recyclers. Our fintech people need to be able to rise up, to the moment and be able to get climate technology that are also unique so that Lagos can begin to lead that Africa's Green Climate Finance trajectory for the next level.
All right, so as circular economy models gain momentum globally, Nigeria is exploring new pathways that can reduce waste while expanding green industries. Now, what opportunities exist within Nigeria's circular economy for job creation and sustainable industrialization?
Well, for the country, there are nationally determined contributions. And we cannot drive policy if it is not local. From a state-determined contribution perspective, our projects are beginning to be defined, considering the level of challenges that we face, that climate change has erupted for us. So what it means is that waste management for Lagos State on a subnational level has become a pathway to achieving some of the climate and the circular economy practices that we desire. We have a project called the Eco-Circulate, and it essentially speaks to an opportunity for the community members, the last mile community members, to be able to interact and be able to exchange the waste that they would typically generate in exchange for, little nominal or mundane things such as gas, a top-up of gas, cash, and even, amenities that are being provided by ministries, departments, and agencies in Lagos State. So we make it like very, very tangible. We make it very, very easy to achieve. We make it convenient, so it's not just about the cash in hand, which is also very, very important, but it's also about what that woman who is at home, who is a mother at home, who is a homemaker, able to do just to be able to make life a little bit more easier. The most tangible, the most low-hanging fruit is from waste management perspective. You can begin to have that interaction with waste that cuts across PET bottle, textile, even electronic waste that is generated in the home. So these are some of the areas. It's called, Eco-Circulate. We also have some other ones, that also talk to waste to energy, that talks to clean technology, that talks to, the sort of areas where people are beginning to understand the incentives so that we're able to shift their mindset from a linear economy to a circular economy.
All right, so speaking on linear economy, let's take a look at production. I like the fact that you brought up waste and looking at our linear production model. It's built on take, make, and dispose. And this is proving very unsustainable as waste increases and resources are becoming very stressed. How can the country transition from this linear system to a fully circular economy in waste management and manufacturing?
So one of the things that we want to do, is that our energy poverty, our air pollution, our waste management, they are realities that we live in, day in, day out. And they play out in various activities of our day. For example, in Lagos, we generate about 13,000 tons of waste on a daily basis, and it is essentially underutilized, under-optimized. And a good portion of that waste is organic. So you'd imagine if we have the sort of collection activity or the collection program that is able to convert biomass, that is able to convert this organic waste into biomass for clean cooking. So our devolution has to be innovative. We're driving innovation with it. We want, climate technology, to be incorporated in the drive towards empowering women. You would notice that I'm saying a lot about women, about youth, and that's because there are very, very strong critical components in being able to drive the narrative of circular economy from the sideline into the mainstream. There's a project that is really, really compelling and is becoming the most transformative one right now, and that is the 80 million clean cook stove distribution. It is the one that is pivotal for clean energy, and it's also pivotal to be able to transform the life of our homemakers, those who hold the community, and those who have very strong influence on the children that they make at home. You know that if we're talking about the effect of climate and the impact of it, you know, the coastal line and those in the vulnerable place who particularly use very harmful substances, for instance, firewood, affecting, you know, indoor pollution, affecting indoor inhalation as well, will tell on health. It will tell on our deforestation, because Nigeria also has been, by statistics, stated to be one of the highest exporters of firewood. It is stated to be about 300 million naira on a yearly basis. So what we're essentially saying is that if, you know, we're able to channel our women to be more healthy by reducing harmful inhalation, get them to be more productive by using more sustainable items and components that is generated from circular economy practices, which is part of the components of this 80 million clean cook stove. And we can also incentivize them not only to cook, we can incentivize them also to be able to plant economic trees. What we're essentially doing is establishing an ecosystem that can help the value chain for economic growth, for skills, because the enterprise aspect of it presents the conversion of agricultural waste, the conversion of construction waste into briquettes that is used to power and to fuel this clean cook stove. So you would see that we're developing a chain, you know, where it is that there are people who can pivot away from the enterprise of firewood, which is harmful and even very, very expensive as it is. They spend about 30% of their own income on firewood, and they, you know, and they do not even, they still live below, you know, the sustainability line in Nigeria. So if we're able to pivot them away from that line of business into something that is more sustainable, that is also very, very less degenerative, you know, to their health, then we're building up a trajectory that is more sustainable and is more long-term. This project in itself is an Article 6.4 project. So what it means is that it has all of the badges of the credit mechanism for carbon credits. And it also is positioned, you know, in a way where it is that technology is taking note of the data of the clean cook stove. So we're using that as an inroad. We're using that as a tool to be able to converse, interact, and also begin to position, you know, all of the tenets of the Sustainable Development Goals and all of the tenets of the environmental sustainability, of the social inclusion that is needed for our people to get more and more understanding about climate literacy and advocacy.
All right, so speaking on incentives, we've had other policies that have come up over time to sort of reduce the waste that we have in the country. At some point, we had trash for cash, and we're also seeing other countries using their own heaps and piles of trash to create biofuels. Is this something that the federal government is looking into? And what happens to those policies that have sort of been left in limbo? Are we going back to them, or are we building up on them?
I believe that we're building up on them, you know, trash for cash, because the truth about it is that the narratives for trash for cash and narratives for eco-circulate all are binding on the fact that your waste is becoming a value in transition. So what it means is that we need to continue to push this word out. We need to continue to get this narrative out into the market space. We need to get it into the household. We need to get it into the business sectors. We need to get it into the free market space so that people can begin to interpret it in the way that it is convenient and that it is purposeful for them. You know, there are so many areas where the value chain for investment is available. There are ways where we can integrate health and climate action within that value chain. the various sectors, like I said again, the various sectors for waste collection is immense. The various sectors for repurposing waste is immense. The various sectors for revitalizing and reconstructing investment, as it is with regards to women, or is it with regards to MSMEs, to enterprises, young enterprises, or even those who are in the big leagues. There are also opportunities to capturing data that drives environmental sustainability and, of course, economic growth. For us in Nigeria or in Africa, we cannot stop to have that conversation because, number one, we're not altruistically driven to even understand that the impact of climate change goes beyond just the everyday change of weather. It also affects our health. There is the heat wave. There is even the insurgency. It's affected our level or trajectory of security. When we're talking about grazing, it is climate change that is causing, the people who graze with their cattle to go from one, jurisdiction to places where they are not supposed to. And because of culture, they essentially feel that, they should let their cattle into anywhere to be able to graze. That has caused conflict in so many ways, and that is also a proponent of climate change. Not to talk about once the land is affected, agriculture is affected. Once agriculture is affected, inflation comes in. So there's so many, dissidents, there's so many take out, from the effect of climate in itself, that we need to start to skew these opportunities. We need to start to skew the solutions that will be useful as it is unique to us. The government is doing their best because, there are various levels of policies, that are already being designed, and this is essentially to help guide the framework and guide the operationalization of it. In Lagos State, we have the Climate Action Plan. We moved beyond that to go into the Resilience Plan because it was necessary for us to understand that not only do people have to adapt, but they need to have to curate resilience plans to help them, to be able to contain the effects of climate change. We have the Nigeria Climate Change Act that was in 2021. That is, from a national determined contribution perspective. We have our UN Sustainable Development Goals that also help us to be able to dimension and measure, evaluate, the effect or the trajectory and the level of contributions that we're making from climate action.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I know that you have so much to put into this because it's a very major discussion and it affects every single part of every economy worldwide. But unfortunately, we do have to wrap up the conversation here. That was Titilayo Oshodi, and she's a special advisor to Lagos Governor on climate change and a circular economy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.